Hi, and welcome to our instructional video that is designed to make you a smarter gambler. My name is Steve Borey, and I'm the author of the American Casino Guide, the #1 best-selling book in the U.S. on the subject of casino gambling and travel, and the only book that comes with over $1,000 in casino coupons. If you want to know more about our book, be sure to visit our website at americancasinoguide.com. And if you have a smartphone or tablet, be sure to download our free app. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and search for American Casino Guide. In this video, American Casino Guide author Steve Borey interviews certified compulsive gambling counselor Arnie Wexler. Arnie was the executive director of the Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey for 8 years and is the author of the book All Bets Are Off, which chronicles his years as a compulsive gambler, as well as how he eventually overcame his addiction and went on to help others. At the end of this video, we will provide a list of organizations that can provide help if you or someone you know has a gambling problem. You're a certified compulsive gambling counselor. Can you explain what that is and how you got that certification?
We had to go through a lot of hours of training. If I remember, it was 60 hours of training way back then in the 80s. And then you became a certified counselor. You did trainings and workshops, and you were taught by people, professional. Dr. Custer came in and taught some of the classes. He was the guy that started treatment on compulsive gambling. There's an American certification board out of New Jersey and a national certification board out of National Council out of Washington at this point.
Exactly what is compulsive gambling?
Compulsive gambling is something that affects you to the point that nothing else matters in your life. You don't care about your vocational pursuits. You don't care about your family. You don't care about anything. The only thing you care about, you eat, sleep, and drink gambling. That's the ball game. In my time that I was gambling, I started gambling when I was 7 or 8 years old. It was flipping baseball cards, shooting marbles, pitching pennies, playing pinball machines. You know, and not every kid that did that became a compulsive gambler. Just like not everybody that took a beer became an alcoholic. Unfortunately, it would be nice if we could identify who could be the addicted gambler and maybe help them before it happens. At 14, I went to the racetrack. It was Memorial Day, 1951. I was making 50 cents an hour after school. I won that day $54. It changed my life. It said to me on the way home, wow, if I could win $54 at the racetrack, what a jerk I am is to make 50 cents an hour. I could be a millionaire from gambling. And from that day on, I was locked into believing that I was going to be a millionaire from gambling. At 17, I was stealing to support my gambling addiction. Gambling owned me when I was a teenager and I had no clue. And, you know, it continued and got worse and worse and worse and worse.
I've heard the terms pathological gambler and problem gambler used when discussing people with gambling problems. Can you explain the difference between the two?
In my head, there is no difference. What it is, the compulsive gambler is defined as a compulsive gambler by the literature and the 12-step programs and about some of the research stuff. The doctors have put together this pathological gambling stuff, but it's really the same thing, Steve. It's like calling the thing two different names, but it is the same name. It could be pathological, it could be compulsive, it could be addictive. Compulsive gambling is compulsive gambling. It don't matter what you want to label it or call it. I think when you look at problem gambling versus compulsive gambling, some of those people that are labeled problem gambling are going to become compulsive gamblers, and some are not. We just don't know which ones, unfortunately, are going to be like that. You know, personally, I think that we're born with a gene that other people don't have, and I think that's the addiction to gambling.
What % of the people who gamble are expected to develop a gambling problem?
If you listen to the American Gaming Association, they say the number is under 1%. I think that they're getting false information because they're doing most of the research, maybe all the research. And what they're coming up with is very interesting because they're calling people on the phone. They're saying to people on the phone, do you have a gambling problem and what is your history with gambling? The wife is there, the kids are there, other family members are there. How do you get a truthful answer? The real answer is to get a group of people together when family members are not there and get a real answer. I've seen research over the years that showed anywhere from 2 to 5% compulsive gambling. Personally, I think the number's even bigger than that.
Are men or women more likely to become problem gamblers?
That's a very interesting question, because up until about when the slot machines started spreading across the country, probably 95 to 98% of all the people that were seeking help were male gamblers. They were action gamblers. In the last years, as we see slot machines coming so prominent across the country, we're seeing about 80% of the people, maybe 90% of the people that play slots and get addicted are female gamblers, and most of them are escape gamblers. And what happens with them is they come in later age, something happens in their life. They lose a husband, or they lose a job, or they lose a child, or something negative happens in their life, and they become escape gamblers. And 95% of the slot gamblers that are looking for help, I believe, are women gamblers today.
Is there one type of gambling where the players are more likely to develop gambling problems? Maybe casino players or sports bettors or lottery players?
Anything that's the quicker, faster action creates more compulsive gamblers. When I went to the racetrack, you used to have 18 or 22 minutes. I stopped gambling in 1968. So you went to the racetrack, you didn't have simulcasting. And what you had was races that ran every 16 to 22 minutes. So you had a lot of time to downtime, I guess you would call it. Where in 16 or 18 minutes, if you're in a casino, you're making probably hundreds of decisions. So it's a different ball game. But the more addictive games are the quicker, faster games.
I read your book, and part of it told the story of how you were a compulsive gambler. It seems you were a pretty miserable guy back then, especially to your wife. Can you tell us some stories of how it affected your life?
You know, it's interesting. Everybody that's read the book, All Bets Are Off, are telling me the same story. You got to see emails from friends I'm getting, how mean I was to my wife. You know, it wasn't that I was mean to my wife. This sickness of addiction gambling makes you mean to everybody, because you're even mean to yourself. You're so angry that you lost and you're chasing your money to get it back, or if you won, you can't sleep and you have anxiety because you want to go gamble more. So that's really what happened there. I had 7 years of my marriage. The first 7 years of my marriage, I was so sick that my wife was having a miscarriage on February 2nd, 1968. I was taking her to the hospital, and I thought the answer was, God, make her die. If she dies, this is going to solve my problem. That's how sick I got. I could tell you that I would tell her, I would pick a fight with her. I would come home, pick a fight with her, and then leave. There were times that she'd lay down on the floor by the door, and I'd step over her and leave to go gamble. I'd leave her in the house crying and walk out to go gamble. I destroyed this lady's life for 7 years and never even understood it or could figure it out until years later. It wasn't until I stopped gambling that I really understood the damage I did to her.
How can someone tell if they might have a gambling problem?
Well, you know, if you go to a 12-step group, they have a list of 20 questions, and you could go through the 20 questions. I answered 19 out of 20 yeses. You got to answer 7 to be qualified as a compulsive gambler. But only you can qualify yourself. But the fact is that the 20 questions will tell you if you have a gambling problem, if you're honest enough to answer them to yourself honestly.
What if someone takes the 20-question quiz, has less than 7 yes answers, and still feels they have a problem?
Well, nobody's going to throw them out of a 12-step program if they don't answer 7 yeses, but I've had a situation where a guy I knew answered 3 and came back the next week and answered, I think, 17 yeses. So you know what happens there? If you become honest with yourself and you do have a problem, it's going to show up. The other thing is people need to know that there's help available. I run a national hotline called 888-LAST-BET. They can call me. I'd be happy to talk to them anytime.
How can someone tell if a friend or loved one has a gambling problem?
You know, it's a little tricky because what happens is there's no track marks, there's no dilated pupils, there's no smell. You can't tell somebody being a compulsive gambler just by looking at them. Just like you can't separate the compulsive gamblers in a casino from sociable gamblers unless you see what kind of action they're doing and what's going on financially with them. You know, my wife would get letters in the mail that I took a loan in the bank. I would come home and she would say, or I applied for a loan in the bank. I would come home and say, Sheila, they made a mistake. I didn't try to get a loan. You know, bookmakers would call up looking for money. Shylock's would call up for looking for money. Financial, I remember one time before we got married, we had a joint bank account, savings account. Sheila was putting money in, I wasn't. When it came time to get married, she thought we had X amount of money. We had less than half of that because she was the only one putting money in. So it's very tricky for a family member to know if somebody has a gambling problem. Here's a classic case. I get a call one day on the 888 last bet call. Lady calls me up and she says, my husband's a compulsive gambler. How long you married? She said, 33 years. When did you know he had a problem? She said, 3 weeks ago when the FBI arrested him because he stole $600,000 from an insurance company. And it can be that hidden and invisible. I get many calls like that.
If someone decides they have a gambling problem, what kind of resources are available to them?
If you want to call me at the 888 last bet, I'll be happy to give out all information. I know most of the states what's going on. There's some inpatient available. There's a lot of outpatient available. There's Gamblers Anonymous. There's gam-anon. And those are places. The gam-anon is to help family members. Compulsive gamblers are helped in the Gamblers Anonymous room.
And last question, can a compulsive gambler ever gamble normally again?
In my mind, no, and I'll tell you why. I have a friend of mine that was 38 years in recovery, and he decided about 3 years ago that he wanted to gamble. He wanted to make some bets on the Final Four tournament that was going on, and that was 3 years ago. And the last email I got from him, he went through his 3 houses, he went through his 2 Cadillacs, and he was living in a rental apartment. And I've never seen a compulsive gambler become a normal or sociable gambler. I sit at a 12-step program meeting where the 5 guys were in this 12-step program before I got there in 1968, and they've all come back in the last few years, and they were out there gambling. One guy lost millions and millions of dollars in the period of 25 years that he wasn't in the program. If you want to know more about what we do to help people, you can buy our book. It's called All Bets Are Off. You can get it in Amazon. You can call me on the phone on 888 last bet. I'll be happy to help anybody that wants or needs help, a gambler or a family member.